Coming to you from behind the crazy socialist lines of the Pacific Northwest, this is the Behind the Line podcast. Here we give you the real deal about local, national, and world news that matters to Constitution-loving people. We feature regular podcasts, and we also feature headlines in 3 minutes daily and breaking news reports when they happen. Please like, share, and subscribe to this channel and find us on other social media sites such as Telegram, Net News Network, YouTube, Anchor FM, LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok, Gab, and Facebook. We're also found on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and anywhere podcasts are found. We appreciate you being here, and thank you for listening. So this thing going on in California with the single-payer medical for all, where they want to give everybody in California free medical, including illegal aliens, is just a small example of what Democrats are trying to do to everybody in this country with these bills and policies and government-run whatevers that they want to shove down everybody's throat, that they claim most of the time is free, but the reality is you're going to pay for it. And this medical in California is a great example. It's going to double the amount of taxes Californians already pay, and they're already paying some of the highest tax in the country. This is an article from Fox Business. It says, California lawmakers unveiled a new bill at the beginning of the year that would establish a single-payer healthcare system, an ambitious plan that would be funded by nearly doubling the state's already high taxes. A new analysis from the Tax Foundation, a nonpartisan group that generally advocates for lower taxes, found that the proposed constitutional amendment would increase taxes by roughly $12,250 per household in order to fund the first-of-its-kind healthcare system. Well, people can't afford to pay out $12,250 per family for this, what's probably going to amount to junk medical coverage. Even if you were to go out and buy your own medical insurance, you know, one of the better premium type plans, you're not going to pay this much a year for medical. And I guarantee you this is going to have high deductibles, so you're still going to be paying out of pocket on top of this. You know, I went for 9 years without medical insurance on myself. And I'm not against medical insurance. It's saved my butt before in the past. But when I had a business, I couldn't afford to buy medical for myself. And I wouldn't have been able to afford to pay the higher taxes to pay for it either. It's just too expensive for what you get. You're going to pay high deductibles anyway, so to me it's not worth it. I'm not on any kind of prescription medications. I never have been. Even when I didn't have insurance, I did. Most states have some kind of medical plan that you can put your kids into that is either low cost or no cost, and I did have my kids on medical. But Americans go to the doctor too much, any little thing, and people are going to the doctor. It's not necessary. It's just a waste of money. Even when I had medical insurance, my gallbladder ruptured, and but for a year leading up to that, I was having chest pains, unexplained chest pains. The doctor could never figure out what it was. I went to several different doctors. They could never figure out what it was. I can remember sitting at the emergency room multiple times for anywhere between 5 and 8 hours. And by the time I was seen, the pain was gone, so they could never, figure out what was going on. And so it got to a point where this pain would come and I wouldn't go to the doctor anymore, because what was the point? And when it finally ruptured, I was in extreme pain, but didn't go to the doctor because I just figured the pain would subside. I thought it was the same thing that I was always having. And finally, after about 6 hours, I told my wife that she was going to have to take me to the emergency room because I was going to die. And so they did an ultrasound and figured out that my gallbladder had basically exploded and thrown gallstones up into my liver and infected my pancreas, and they had to do emergency surgery. I almost died. And afterwards, when I was talking to a specialist about it, he told me that if any one of these doctors had just done a simple blood test at any point along the way, they would have known exactly what was going on. So, my point is that all this time spent at the doctors, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to do you any good. All this money spent doesn't mean it's going to do you any good. You're forking out all this money for what? For maybe. I would say get catastrophic insurance because it's cheap, and if something catastrophic happens, you'll sort of be covered, but you're still going to pay. You're still going to pay no matter what. None of this is free. And you've got soaring inflation right now. The cost of everything is up. And Democrats are still trying to figure out ways to take what little money you have to make sure you've got nothing left over after you pay your bills. It's ridiculous and outrageous that they keep pushing and pushing all these things on us that they force us to have. It's not their place. Back to the article. In all, the tax increases are designed to raise an additional $163 billion per year, which is more than California raised in total tax revenue any year before the pandemic. The proposal includes three main revenue raisers, according to Jared Walsack, a fellow at the Tax Foundation. Higher income taxes on wealthy Americans. Yep, it's always about making the rich pay for everybody else. A payroll tax on certain employees' wages for large companies, and a new gross receipts tax. Under the bill, the top marginal rate on wage income would soar to 18.5%, well above the median top marginal rate of 5.3%, and the state's existing rate of 12.3%. There would be an 18-bracket system with higher taxes kicking in for individuals earning more than $149,509 a year. In California, that's not very much. The highest rate would apply to those who earn more than $2,484,121. Here's a closer look at how the tax system would be restructured based on individual income. California would also expand the payroll tax paid by employees who earn more than $49,990 in annual income. If you earn that in California, you're poor. And they're going to take $12,000 from you out of that? Are you kidding me? If they work for a company that has more than 50 workers. Walsack noted the plan would deter small businesses from expanding by inadvertently creating a tax cliff. For instance, and I don't know how inadvertent it really is, if a company that had 49 workers earning $80,000 each hired one additional employee, they would suddenly create a tax bill of more than $90,000. Finally, the state would also adopt a new 2.3% gross receipt tax on qualified businesses minus the first $2 million in annual gross receipts. at a rate more than 3 times that of the country's current highest gross receipts tax. Walsack noted the proposed tax increases come as California grapples with a high number of residents who are leaving for red states with lower tax burdens. No kidding. A separate tax foundation analysis based on Census Bureau data shows that California's population actually declined 0.8% in 2021, even as states with lower taxes saw their populations increase, practically doubling state taxes, even if the burden is partially offset through state-provided health coverage, could send taxpayers racing for the exits, Walsack wrote. The taxes would fund government-run health care for all Californians, which supporters say would offset the cost of higher taxes and would save money in the long run. I don't believe that, and I'd like to see the data on that. That's all political talk right there. Gavin Newsome, a Democrat, the governor of California, has said that he supports a single-payer health care in the past, although he has not commented on the specific proposal. The Assembly Bill 1400 was sponsored by Assemblyman Ash Calra. It's just the same thing the Democrats do in all these Democrat-run states. It's what the federal government is trying to do to us right now with Biden and the Democrats in control. All these programs, all this money, all these promises that it's not going to cost anything. There is nothing for free. And if you haven't figured that out yet as an American, and with these Democrats and all the promises they make with all these programs, then you've got your head in the sand. Washington State tried to pull the same sort of thing with this long-term care tax that they were going to enact, that Inslee signed into law, even though people were against it. They did an advisory vote. People were against it. Now it's on hold and will possibly, hopefully, be canceled altogether, but it's on hold for a year because Inslee will be out of office then, and it'll be somebody else's problem because they got so much blowback from this thing. 50 cents or something like that per $1,000 that you make paid into the state, deducted from your paycheck by your employer for long-term care with a maximum benefit of like $36,000 when you need it. And I can tell you from personal experience that $36,000 for a long-term care facility is nothing. My grandma is in a long-term care facility that costs $15,000 a month. So you're talking about just over 2 months worth of long-term care with that money that you could be using to either get your own long-term care or investing it or doing whatever you want. It's your money. The government should not be taking our money when we work our butts off. The other thing about this long-term care thing was you couldn't take it with you if you move. And a lot of people from Washington retire in other states because it's cheaper, and so you would just forfeit the money that you paid into the state program. If you started paying into it when you were 18 years old, you pay something like $140,000 over the course of your working life into this program. And yet you're only entitled to $36,000 of the benefit. That data, those numbers are on their own website. It's a complete rip-off. Just like every other program these Democrats try to, stuff down our throats. And it's just not going to change. As long as these politicians, are allowed to invest in these companies, pharmaceutical companies, medical companies, you're not going to see anything change. What's in it for them to do something that's going to limit or hurt that business that they have an investment in? These companies all have lobbyists that pay big bucks to these politicians' campaign, quote-unquote, funds and everything else. and then they're allowed to invest in these companies. That doesn't seem like a conflict of interest. It's a clear-cut conflict of interest. Politicians should not be getting rich when they're supposed to be there serving the people. They're not making decisions that are the best decisions for the people when these companies are paying them lots of money and letting them invest lots of money so they get rich off their company. They're not going to do anything to limit that company. Look at the pharmaceutical companies. This is the biggest scam in American history. There's a cancer drug that costs $465,000 for one treatment. What? How in the hell can you possibly justify that? And there's a whole host of other drugs that are upwards of $100,000 per treatment, or close to $100,000 per treatment. And the pharmaceutical companies try to say they let the market decide the price. BS. This is pure profit, pure taking advantage of people at their lowest points in life. And these politicians are in bed with all of it. It's all about money. Everything in our government is about money. That has got to change. Somehow, some way. Because nothing is ever going to get better for us unless it does. They shouldn't be allowed to invest. In fact, lobbyists altogether should be done away with. Period. You got politicians retiring and becoming board members of these companies, or, CEOs or vice presidents of these companies. It's completely outrageous. Complete conflict of interest of them doing their jobs. But we let this happen. We don't demand better. We don't demand change, and so nothing changes. As long as they can get away with it, they're going to. If you live in California, I would be raising a huge stink about this. If you live there, you cannot afford to have that amount of money taken away from you for this ridiculous healthcare system they want to impose. Contact your local politicians, your representatives, the governor's office, and let them know enough is enough. We don't need any more new taxes. Hey guys, thanks for listening to the Behind the Line podcast at behindthelinepodcast.com. If you liked this, I hope you will like, share, and subscribe to our channel. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Facebook at Behind the Line WA. You can find us on Twitter at Behind WA. You can also find us on Telegram and LinkedIn at Behind the Line. And I'm on Rumble. Thanks again for listening, and I appreciate your support.